Nityanandam. I just wanted to share, answer some of the questions. People have been asking a lot of questions. How's it going in India? And the simple answer is we have a lot of things to do. We have a lot of opportunities that Swamiji gives us. And there's always more and more opportunities to align to really the highest purpose of our life. And it's actually something that can be lived here. That's not actually something that people think about a lot, I think, in the general society. So I wanted to answer why I chose the path of sannyas. And for me, I grew up as a ice hockey player in Canada, mostly. And so just as kids, we played sports a lot, sports and video games. And after high school, I studied computers for 2 years, and I worked for General Electric Software for 2 years. And then I decided to go to university to try to find out what was the answer or purpose of life. And that was my sole reason for going to university for 6 years. And after that, in 2007, I realized I didn't have the answer. And so then I had to look somewhere else. So I knew that I had a few experiences during university that I couldn't really explain. Once I was sitting in meditation, and the meditation instruction I had remembered from our Buddhism class was that you try to go beyond whatever comes in front of the senses. You kind of drop it and go beyond it, drop it and go beyond it. So I went beyond kind of the back pain and the feeling of the floor, sitting on the floor, and the sound of the traffic, and the feeling of like breathing oxygen, and then the experience of having thoughts. And I just kind of tried to keep going beyond that stuff, kind of dropping it. And then kind of like 30 minutes later, I woke up and I thought, oh, that was strange. Something happened that I don't know what happened to the time. And I had a few experiences like that. There was a few days where I had dreams in the nighttime, and they were all related to each other, and they were all related to what had happened in the day. So it was kind of like, instead of 3 days and 3 nights, it was like 6 days in a row. And I thought, that's really strange. Like, I was even dreaming about things that were going to happen the next day. So there's a few things like that that happened during my university time that I couldn't really explain. And so I was back in Edmonton in Canada in August of 2007, and applying for jobs that I realized I didn't want. And so I said, okay, well, what's the problem? And I just realized I didn't get the answer. I didn't get the answers that I wanted in university. They didn't know. The philosophy class didn't know what was the purpose of life, and how you should eat, or how you should sleep, or why, and what's the relationship between what you know about biology and psychology and sociology and anthropology and geology and education. How do you link all these things together? They didn't have the answer. There was just, there was experts in different fields, but there was no one who was able to live with full integrity about what they were saying, and also who had the answers from all different aspects of life. There would be experts like Einstein or Richard Feynman in quantum electrodynamics or whatever, and they could speak on that field. And then in another field, they wouldn't have answers for you. Oprah would have these things, and Eckhart Tolle would say these things, and different people were saying different things, and Martin Luther King Jr. was saying this, and Plato was saying that. But to link all of their perspectives, John Dewey in educational philosophy was saying this, and the Montessori schools were saying that, and so how do you link all of this? And the sports psychologists, or sports experts, or Wayne Gretzky, or whoever these people were saying something else, and then your friends are saying this, your parents are saying that, you're thinking this. How do you bring it all together? And so that was the main thing I realized, is that there was a lot of experts in different fields. After I studied for 6 years in 3 countries, I studied in about 12 different departments, and I did really well. And I even spent 4 months studying in Sweden. And I realized that there was experts in every field, and they could go to a certain extent, but like the 2-year-old child who asks the question, why? And at the end, you have no answer for them. I realized that if you ask everyone why, at the end, they don't have the answer. And I just saw that really clearly in my second last or last semester in the university. And it hit me that I didn't get what I wanted out of university, that what the society was saying, that you should graduate high school, then you should get a job or get some experience, and then get some more education, and then get a better job, and then get married, and then have kids, and then retire, and then die. I didn't know why I should do that. When in 1999, when I finished my computer college and got a job with General Electric Software in the top floor of a 25-story building in downtown Edmonton, paying at that time about $38,000 a year, which was an extraordinary amount of money for a person of the age of, I guess, 20 or so. And it wasn't fulfilling. Hanging out with friends in high school, playing sports was fun. And even college was fun. We used to play sports and learn about computers and stuff and meet new people and hang out in the city and go out on weekends. That was fun. But then graduating to a job where I was supposed to go to an office where a lot of people, although it was a very flexible work environment, you could wear casual clothes, and you could actually set your own hours too. It was very flexible. We had a squash team. We had a social club. It was actually, one of the kind of bit more progressive environments, especially for office environments. But the reality was, for the most part, there was 2 floors of people and approximately 100 employees. And for the most part, we were going there 9 to 5. And some people would wear, their white collar shirts with ties and slacks. And, like everyone else, complain about their life, basically. And then every quarter, when we had to release the new release of the software, there was a push where we'd be putting in 60 hours a week and people complaining and then want to take a week off kind of thing. And then the downsizing happened where, people you worked with and you cared about, they got fired, laid off because the consolidation of their work was being moved to Charlotte in the USA or whatever. And they didn't have any choice in the matter. So that was kind of disheartening, and I thought, okay, this is not really a promotion for me, it's a demotion. College was fun. I had a lot of money from the student loans, had friends, we had freedom. We didn't have to do very much. And this is definitely a demotion. It's not a promotion. So I said, well, what have I been doing for my 20 years of my life? Till the age of 18, 19, you work for what society is telling you to graduate from grade 12 and get a job, or get some more education and get a job. And I did that. It had been 20 years or so, almost 21 years. And I thought, wow, so 21 years I spent doing what society told me so I could get this job. And it's a big demotion from what I've been doing for the last 20 years. So I think this is not going the direction that I want to go in. So I said, well, what is the society asking from me? They're asking for me next is, the family was asking, when are you going to get married? Are you going to get married? Are you going to have kids? And what's happening with the job? What's going to happen with the next job? What else are you going to do? And so I started thinking about it. And I realized, very strongly the question again and again came, when are you going to get married? Are you going to buy a house? What are you going to do with your money? And I was like, I just got a giant student loan that, they're really gouging into me to pay back some $400 a month, and interest was accruing at the rate of like $4 a day. And it was, it was going to be a very long process to be able to pay this off. And it was going to be years, I was looking at that time, it was actually quite less. It was only about $10,000. So it would have been later in 2007 when I was looking at $4 a day of interest and about $35,000 to pay back. But by the time I was going to pay all those things back, then, it would have been many years, and I would have been kind of stuck into the economy of kind of taking out new loans and paying them back by that time. So I realized that, wow, I'd gotten into this tough economy. By 2007, after university, I was thinking this. And after going from high school to college and realizing that was not fulfilling and yet giving me a computer job, and then checking in university for 6 years, realizing they didn't have the answers. Then I thought, what am I going to do now? And I thought, what else is there? I did what everyone told me to do. I went to university. I studied psychology and philosophy and humanities and, education. And, I lived in Montreal. So by then, I had been, I'd spent time in Vancouver and Edmonton and a little bit in Calgary, a little bit in Toronto and Montreal. And I'd traveled to Sweden and I'd been to the United States a couple times. And I'd studied a little bit about different educational systems in China. And I had considered seriously teaching English in China or in Japan for some time. And so I had a little bit of experience of what was going on. I learned a little bit of French in Montreal, and I saw a little bit of what happens there with the nightlife and whatnot, and what it's like to live in a bigger city like Toronto. What is the competition like? What are the people like? What are they working for? So coming from a small town, born in a town of about 2,000 people in Alberta and growing up in a city of about 16,000 people, then I had experience of living in a city with around 2 or 3 million people in Montreal, and saw a little bit more of the world and what's going on. And we learned about NAFTA and free trade and I guess the different trade agreements. At that time it was FTAA, I think, was the one that was coming out. And, we learned about Walmart and these sweatshops and how these companies, exploit countries, entire countries, really destroy entire countries by selling their business to them, basically, and then indebting them forever and destroying their natural resources. And this was kind of clubbed with protests against Benjamin Netanyahu, who we kind of saw was one of the criminals of war that was heading a state and being welcomed at Concordia University, where we were studying, to give speeches about, I don't know what it was. There was a large student population of Muslims in Concordia University, whom I learned a lot from. And so by 2007, when I was back in Edmonton, and I had applied for around 50 or maybe even 70 different jobs, and I had the idea that I would be like a community liaison worker, organizer for NGOs kind of thing. And I got that interview, and I walked in the interview, and I just had no interest in, pretending. I actually got a job in an NGO that kind of gave work and housing support and schooling support to people ranging in age from 16 to 32, I think it was, and called Youth Connections in Edmonton. And it was just, for me, it was more of a pencil pushing job. Everything was set up. They just needed some kind of administrators to sign checks and fill out forms to distribute the money that, mostly went to one or two organizations. And it wasn't what I was looking for. So after 6 years of studying in university, thinking, this would be the kind of job that I got, when I got out, I was not fulfilled that the university didn't answer my questions. There were still a lot of mysteries in life. I wasn't fulfilled. Whenever I had one thing, I would always want something more. As I got the university degree, then I had to go to the next thing to be fulfilled. And I was thinking a lot about these kinds of things. And I realized that was what my whole life had been, that you had a goal and you're working towards it. And even while you're working towards it, you forget that you're working towards that goal. Somehow it comes about to be, and it's fulfilling for a very short period of time. And then to keep yourself motivated and interested, you have to set a goal to attain something else that is outside of yourself. And I realized very clearly that this is going to be a continuing cycle. I will be wanting something outside, obtaining something outside, feeling fulfilled for a very short period of time, and then once again wanting something from outside. And I just realized, so that means that the only option is to get away from the cycle of feeling unfulfilled because I don't have something outside, and working to get something outside. And then once I have it again, feeling unfulfilled and looking for something else to fulfill me, the only answer to be fulfilled is to be fulfilled now. As long as I'm working for something else to fulfill me, then it means I'm not fulfilled now. And the only way I can be fulfilled now is if I decide to be fulfilled now and decide that I don't need anything from outside. So I kind of had this intellectual realization, and So I kind of coming to recognize some of these things, and I thought, okay, so yeah, this makes sense. So what am I going to do about it? So I got a job working evenings and weekends mostly with children and teenagers with violent history and brain problems. And I actually at that time achieved one goal of mine, which was getting paid to sleep. And I got a job where the kids would be asleep when I got there, even sometimes, and they would be sleeping the whole time that I was there, and I would get paid to sleep for 4 or 6 hours and just be there, and then I could go. So I thought that was pretty cool. I got a job where I got paid to sleep. And so then after that, of course, I looked for something else to fulfill me. And that was basically it. I just was very clear, like, university was not fulfilling and my life was not sustainably fulfilling. We were actually drinking frequently, and that kind of puts you on a down the day after. And then you're kind of rebuilding yourself from Monday through Friday, and then kind of going out all night on the weekends, and then rebuilding yourself again. And I thought, what would life be like if we never took the steps back? If instead of taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 1 step forward, 2 steps back every weekend, what would happen if everything that you recognized as a step back you didn't take? If you just kept taking steps forward, then you'd get to a place soon where you'd never been before, and every step would be into a place where you'd never been. And I just intellectually I questioned, what would that be like? So I started to realize that I wanted to find something else other than a job, and I decided that I better start doing my meditations because I had some experience of that in university and it seemed interesting. So I started doing that. I went to the library and I got some DVDs because I didn't want to read books. And I started watching videos about anything I could find, anything I could get my hands on. I started reading a few books like The Power of Now from Eckhart Tolle, and like I think he has A New Earth. And there was The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. I read a little bit of that. And The Power of, what was it? I don't remember what it was. The Power of Now, or something to do with energies that are available to you now. There was some books like this. And I got the Dhammapada, which was awesome. It was kind of more allegorical, but it was really awesome. I started lighting candles and doing some meditations. Eventually I found Bhagavad Gita. I had the word Gita ringing in my head. For some reason it was ringing in my head, and I thought I better find out what this thing is. So I searched for Gita and I found Bhagavad Gita online. I went to a local bookstore and I got a copy of the book. I started reading it. This would have been around October of 2007. I started reading it. So at this time I basically quit. I decided that I was going to quit alcohol. You know, we'd been drinking from the age of 17 until this was 2008. So that was like 1995 until 2008. So it was kind of a long time. And, we were partying 2 or 3 times a week at that point. We didn't really know what else to do. That's what we wanted to do as teenagers. And when we got to be adults with more money, it's like we started doing it more. But it was not fulfilling. And so I knew I had to get out. After going through 6 years of university in Montreal, I realized that partying also didn't have the answers that I was looking for. I was also studying philosophies even from like Bob Marley, and seeing that was the closest thing that I could find of something that you could really apply to your life. But there was a lot of gaps missing about even like how to eat, how should you eat? How should you sleep? When should you sleep? What kind of work should you do? All these very practical questions that were not answered by even my Christian background or even people that I knew. I saw that Buddhism talks sometimes about phlegm and the importance of cleaning phlegm and bile from the body. And I thought, that's strange. Why are they talking about phlegm and bile? And that stuck in my head also. So I started researching. I ended up studying approximately 100 different teachers, spiritual teachers on YouTube over that kind of 1.5 year period. I really was studying everything I could get my hands on. Like I said, I stopped hanging out with my friends because every invitation I got from them, they were drinking. And I slowly was quitting drinking. And so for 2 months, I said no to every invitation I got. I quit playing my hockey team, for one, because they were drinking, but mostly because I found it impossible to play ice hockey without having the intention of the willingness to be violent at some point. just the nature of the atmosphere in the dressing room. I played ice hockey for 30 years. I was quite good, actually, and just recreationally, not professionally or anything like that. And then once you get on the ice, you have to be willing to, if not be violent, to receive violence. So I received a little bit of violence, and I was just like, wow, this is really violent to my body, taking this. And so I had to quit. I heard through the Prabhupada, speaking of Krishna, saying about humbleness and ahimsa, non-violence. I heard this ahimsa. I thought, is it possible to live non-violent? That's, I remember having those thoughts. I was just questioning, is it possible to be humble? And he was saying, like, the first step is humility. The first step of spiritual life is humility. I thought, wow, that's a pretty big step. And then he said, talking about ahimsa, I thought, is it possible to be non-violent? And so I started trying. So that's when I quit ice hockey, and I started listening a lot more, because I realized how actually not listening to people is violence. Pushing and spewing constantly on them is violence. So I really started listening. In my job, I could literally get through entire shifts without speaking, because I was very good at it, and the kids just needed general direction, and I was good at doing that. So I literally became where I would not speak for entire 8 or 12-hour shifts. And I used to go for 2 or 3 hour walks every morning. I used to get up at 4 a.m. just to get up, because I saw that was in the spiritual books saying to get up early. Then I used to, take a shower, eat breakfast, and go back to sleep even until maybe 10 even. I used to sit even for days, not really meditating, just sitting. And I didn't know what to do. I have to be honest, the biggest problem was that I didn't know what to do. I knew a lot of things what not to do, but I didn't know what I should do. That was the toughest thing. I spent 1.5 years not knowing what to do, and that was tough. It was really tough. I lost my physical aspect of my life that I had been always very closely connected to my body, which I've only gotten back now through Swamiji's grace of things that he's given to me. And I became very mental, because I wasn't living physically, and I was disconnected kind of from the world, in the sense that I saw all the negativities in it, and I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't want to just get fooled and join some group, because I had spent, even 6, 7, 8 years really looking intensely and full time studying, looking for what life is about and what it should be about. And I used to think, I'm asking, what is the purpose of life? It cannot be that so many people have come to the planet, like Einstein or whoever, and asked many Tesla questions about life and what's going on, even that Oppenheimer, even who we consider very violent Nazis and these kind of things, Stalin. And I thought, I can't be, out of all these people, Aristotle and Socrates, I can't be the only one. Although people are studying different areas of life and talking about it, they ask questions in that area. I can't be the only one who asks the question, what is life? Right? So many answers about biology and chemistry and physics and mathematics. But what about the question, what is life? Why am I here? What am I doing here? So that's it. So basically I was reading Bhagavad Gita and realizing that someone existed that knew more about me than I knew about me, and I wanted to know how that being lived, the difference between me and that being. If I have the experience, if I live like that being lives, how do you live? If I'm living the way that I was living, that I didn't know or like or understand, then how should I change my living? And that kind of enlightened being, how do they live? And so I had those kind of questions, and from the space of learning about Srila Prabhupada, I started watching him on YouTube, and I had an idea. I said, okay, that's nice. And then, he just lived not too long ago. Is there any beings who are still alive that have this science, that know about this thing? Where are they? And so I started searching, and I saw that there was, I started searching for spiritual masters, and Kumbh Mela came up. And so I had planned to go to Kumbh Mela actually in January of one of those years. And one of the associated videos was the video of Swamiji, and the second video of Swamiji was a 1-hour interview with, I think her name was Marianne Broccoli in Seattle, on a show called Being in Seattle. An interview with Swamiji, and he told many things, and he told about the opportunity to come and live and study in India and learn about the authentic Vedic sciences and have experience of it. And so I called them. This was in about October, and they had started the most recent program in September, so I missed it. They said they didn't know when the next program would be, maybe January. So I just started continuing watching Swamiji. This actually would have been in November of 2008. And that's it. I started watching Swamiji, and he said to try out for 3 months, not consuming anything except spiritual material. Books, magazines, news, music, videos, TV, only spiritual content. So I started doing that. And by that time, it was mostly about him. I had studied over 100 different spiritual teachers, even the Krishnamurtis, Ramana Maharshi, Papaji and his disciple Muji, Lahiri Messiah, and a little bit of Patanjali, and many different teachers, actually, all different kinds of teachers. Greg Braden a little bit. And so I had a good idea after my university studies and studying these people online and what was out there and what people were talking about, what they were doing. And so most of what I was consuming at that point came from Swamiji, because there were so many videos, about 650 videos of him available, and I had explored pretty much, a lot of what other things was available online. And so I started doing this 3-month practice of only consuming spiritual material. And what happened was, whenever I would start speaking, because I was watching so many of Swamiji's satsangs, I estimate I probably watched on average every video 4 times. There was about 634 videos, and some of them would be even 2 hours or more long. So on average, I would have watched something like 2,400 videos probably. And so I was just watching Swamiji's videos again and again. He would say things that seem impossible, like you can fly, you can live without food, you can live without anger and pain. And if I didn't agree with it, or I couldn't see how he meant it, how it could make sense to me, I'd watch the video again and again. I thought, I'll just keep watching. If I agree, I'll agree. If I disagree, I'll disagree. And if I didn't understand something, I'd watch it again and again until either I saw that clearly that's not true, or I can see how what he's saying could be the case. And every single time, it turned out that I could agree with what he was saying, which never happened with any other teacher. So I already was intellectually convinced that he could do anything I wanted to do. He could make anything happen for me that I wanted to happen before I went for Inner Awakening at the end of 2009. I ended up going for Inner Awakening in the middle of November for a 3-month program of 2009. And sure enough, the Inner Awakening, about 19 days into the 21-day program, gave me the experience that the solution to everything was inside of me. And I knew I never had to do anything else ever again. I never needed to study anything else ever again. I never needed to go anywhere else ever again or see anything else. All the solutions were inside of me. It was just a decision to see it. So that was a hugely profound change and experience in my life. And I tried to go back to Canada and continue the kind of living there somehow in any capacity. I got jobs cleaning IKEA, cleaning grocery stores, and doing different kinds of work with kids. Even in residential care, just to see if I could use what Swamiji had given me and still stay in Canada. And I tried for years, but it just wasn't going to happen for me. I always wanted more and more and more. When I had the next opportunity to come back to India, which was around March of 2011, I came back for 6 months, and then I immediately came back for another 6 months, and immediately came back for another 6 months. And then I was clear that I wanted to make it my lifestyle. I just had a few reservations about, some things stuck in you about you're going to get married, you're going to have kids, and then how does that fit into my new understanding of life? And so I had to resolve all those, and a lot of that has happened until now. And I'm getting much better context now about the importance of sharing and giving what Swamiji gives us to more people. So this video kind of marks the start of my life as having the priority of giving what Swamiji gives to more people, because it's clearly the best thing that I've found for consciously searching even since 1998 until this year. So that's 20 years, which sounds unbelievable, but I literally was looking and almost entirely full time for that whole time. I really started intensely looking in 1999, and I never stopped. I haven't stopped. And just this year, I had a big breakthrough in August when I came. I had some experience working in the kitchen, the Analeya, the Vedic Sattvic kitchen. I had a lot of amazing experiences there that gave me the strength of my body back. Then I came out and learned a lot about Swamiji's life and his mission and what's going on with him in India, which is another entire story. And got some great context, and Swamiji blessed me to do some work with researching and sharing information and context of the history of and future of Hinduism. So these few things in the last, since August, the last 5 months or so have been major breakthroughs for me. And I'm just realigning myself to having my priority as sharing what Swamiji gives to me to more people, because it's clearly the best and really only solution. A lot of people don't understand how you can say it's the only solution. There's a lot of solutions to hunger, but they won't all be good for you, and they won't all lead to the next solution. Once you're hungry, then what's the next problem you may encounter? Thirst, and what's the next problem? Maybe relationship problems, and then livelihood problems, and then emotional, mental problems, and then spiritual problems, and conscious, contextual problems of who am I and how do I exist and why. And if you go to that ultimate extent and you look inside and see that you're a vast experience of consciousness, then how do I align to that? And that for each person, there's only one direction. If I want to travel from Montreal to Toronto, I can go east, but it's going to take me a long time, and you know what? If I'm walking, I may never get there. I have to go west. There's one direction I have to go. In the end, I have to go in that direction. So everyone has, in that sense, one direction. We all exist in a space of oneness, but for us to look into the oneness exists in that directional space, and there's only one direction. You can only move towards the oneness. Any other way that's not directly towards the oneness will have to eventually be readjusted. That's why I say there's only one solution. This is the only possible solution for me. And it's given life by His Divine Holiness Paramahamsa Nityananda, because he's in the physical body. There's many beings who have access to all of our ancestors, of course. There's many, and Krishna is there, of course, and Jesus. All these beings are available. But the one who's come in the physical body that can speak my name and touch my shoulder and answer my questions is His Divine Holiness Paramahamsa Nityananda. And of all the things and people that I've studied, I'm very clear that, and all the world leaders that I've met and that I've been in Swamiji's presence while they met him and researched what they've written about him and said about him, how he'll lead the world, and they want to send all their kids to have his initiations, and they spend their entire lifetime, 60 years. I met two sadhus who were in their 60s who had spent their entire life meditating in the forest, trying to get a glimpse of what third eye is. Swamiji sits casually in a reclining chair and looks at people and awakens their third eye of 6-year-olds who can do then Akashic readings. I saw these sadhus after they had a demo of 6-year-old kids demonstrating their third eye powers. They were literally dazed. They just kind of stumbled out of the auditorium where the demo was happening. And I've met these world spiritual leaders that fall at Swamiji's feet and grab his hand and try to take third eye initiation because they've been spending their entire lives trying to understand, trying to experience the purpose of their life. So I'm very clear that I don't know what he is, but I know that every time I've turned away, it's been detrimental to me, and every time I move towards him, it's better. And no matter how much I look towards him, it always gets bigger. And so I can't say where his end is or what it is, but I can say with my experience and my knowledge of life and the different religions that I've studied and everything that I've looked into with my own experience and objectivity and not committing to anything that doesn't come from my own experience. I never chose to, come from an ice hockey player in Canada to be a Hindu monk. That was the last thing. I always knew I'd never be a religious person. I was never going to be a teacher, which I became, and I was never going to be a religious person even more, which I also, in a certain sense, have become. And but I didn't choose this. It happened. Swamiji opened up the space inside of me to see that I exist as a beautiful, eternal, spotless being. And it's my choice to pay attention to that and see how my intentions impact that. And so I can call myself a Hindu because what we call as Hinduism has been the tradition of many thousands of years that has expounded upon and revealed and taught and developed the sciences of life and living. But we all are conscious beings. And so just speaking from the strength of the 100 million source books of Hinduism and the many, many, many thousands of years verified by enlightened masters like Buddha and Krishna and Lord Ram, and the list goes on and on, Hanuman, and even the people Lakshmana, Sita, and even people like J. Krishnamurti who refer to the Hindu sciences, and Bogart. The list goes on. Yogananda and his guru Sri Yukteswar and his guru Lahiri Mahasya, and moving on and on, and even people like Guru Nanak, all coming from the spiritual roots of there being a conscious reality that we can realize as our superconscious source, that is the source of all of us, the source of our own consciousness, and what to do about that, and the science of yoga being written down from Patanjali, but him telling very clearly that it comes from many, 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 many generations before him, which had never had the need to be written down, and it's revealed from the Adi Yogi, who we regard as Lord Shiva, and beings of Devi, Parvati, Kalabhairava. So many beings are there, all in the same pantheon. In this context of Hinduism, religious tradition of understanding that we're conscious beings, and there's a science, a mapped science to overcoming the limitations of the mind and the body on the consciousness. That we're not the human, but we're the consciousness having a human experience. And what does that mean? And what does that mean for what kind of solutions I can have? So it's a mapped science of consciousness that brings a solution to every single being, no matter what their qualities and desires and paths and histories are. That's the multitude of Hinduism, because it's a solution for every single being. It's been revealed over many, many millions of years and documented, verified by the great incarnations over time as being the same and having the same source of the Vedas, the Agamas, the spoken word of the ultimate superconsciousness when it comes into the human body. So on the verification of these 100 million source books and these many millions of masters over many millions of years, and Paramahamsa Nityananda, His Divine Holiness, the experiences that he's given me of myself as eternal and expansive and limitless, judged against what I've studied in my own life of Christianity, having 40 years experience there, and a lot of friends and interests, and studying and debating with Muslim friends and Jewish friends, and having a lot of experience in Buddhism. So this is the strength, is the 100 million source books, the millions of masters over millions of years as their documented life by the strength of masters like Patanjali, Buddha, Krishna, Ram. These many, many, many masters, saying there's many, many, many more masters like that happen over time and come again and again. And His Divine Holiness, Paramahamsa Nityananda, giving me the experience myself, and him saying that this is his experience also, and giving the experience myself. So these four factors, it dwarfs anything else that exists on the planet. That may be a group of books and a small group of people for a couple thousand years, and that's the depth of the tradition. Nothing against that. Everyone, of course, is given the freedom of consciousness to make decisions. But it's clear for me from my own experience that I'm not indoctrinated or controlled by anything. But when I look into the expansiveness, when I look into where Swamiji is showing me, that expansiveness is endless. And he's never asked me for anything. And he always just giving and giving. So my choice to take sannyas, in a sense, was not a choice. It's something that happened to me. I definitely didn't choose to be Hindu. And since realizing that this is where the best thing is, and the best possibility, and that it's limitless as far as I can tell, and that it will continue to be so, and judging from the 100 million books and millions of masters and millions of years, and what Swamiji is saying, what my experience is, that it will always be like that. So given that, then I choose that I will choose to take up the opportunities that Swamiji gives me, manifest the powers of third eye, manifest the spiritual conscious, super conscious powers, and share that with more people. Then I can make the choice to take up things. But I'm very clear that I never made a choice to come here. Swamiji guided me to look into something, and I saw it, and I had the choice to look into myself or to ignore myself. And looking into myself made more expansion. And it led to the opportunity to consciously make the willful decisions to manifest more and more of my spiritual potential. And that path is called Hinduism because that's the largest and the remaining science of super consciousness on the planet. So my choice to take sannyas started as definitely not a choice, in the sense that I didn't choose to be Hindu. I didn't choose Hinduism. I didn't even choose Swamiji. It's just a question of, like, the water is there and you can drink it and it'll nourish your body, or you can choose to not drink it and you can go a different path. And it was like, I can look at the beautiful undying flower that Swamiji showed I am, or I can ignore it. And it was a point where I had to ask myself in 2017, in August after 2007, after university, am I going to just go on never having answered my questions in university? And I decided very clearly. I remember it was a very hot day. I was walking down on a large sidewalk. I think it was August 17, 2017. It would have been somewhere between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. I remember very clearly when the decision happened in me. Before I made the decision, it happened in me. It happened in me about 2 weeks before I made the decision. That I decided that I was going to look inside and look for answers. I just knew that if I didn't answer my questions, my whole life I would be wondering, what if you answered your question? And by looking into the questions and looking into myself, everything just grew into getting more and more opportunities from Swamiji. And so after that, I had to resolve certain things like, I had planned to get married, I planned to have kids, I planned to live in Canada, I planned to, play with my sister's children and my cousin's children, and have my grandparents play with my kids and all that stuff, right? Go camping and all that stuff, right? And I was a hockey player, and now I'm dressed like this, and how do you resolve that? And all the partying, everyone was partying, and all the friends and everything. It's a resolution you have to make. So I worked on that also. So in a sense, becoming Hindu was not a choice. taking sannyas also was not a choice. It was kind of the natural thing that has to happen to give myself the best opportunities. But after that, you have many choices to make about how to take up the responsibilities. So it's become a choice that I can take up responsibility for what my experience has been. But it definitely evolves itself into being very clearly the ultimate and only solution for me, without ever having chosen it. So it's been very helpful for me to share all of these things. If you are at all interested in anything I've spoken about, or you would like to know how you can experience yourself, experience the life, experience the people you live with and the people you love, and learn how to help them, learn how to be a space for them to create what they want, and learn to live the solution to any problem that you could possibly think of, and be able to create anything that you could possibly think of, and experience things way beyond what you could ever believe or understand, then contact me. And and you can decide what you want to do with your own opportunities. So thank you for being there, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to share some of these ideas. People are always asking me, how is India? How's it going in India? And I always think, how can I answer this question, in 30 minutes or less? And I think I'm just a little bit closer to 40 minutes. So this is one way to answer. So thank you all very much, and blessings from my Guru, His Divine Holiness, Paramahamsa Sri Nityananda. And I hope you're having a great time. And just let us know if there's anything that you want to make for yourself or others. Okay, thank you. Nityanandam.